Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Oh, I am tired. I know I look tired and old. I'm feeling it. Gotta keep a sense of humor, right? Um, Work never ends. It's okay. It's all right. Keep fighting. Um, I was so tempted to get a new license plate today that simply says resist. Yeah. Anyway, there are two recent news stories that have caught my attention. The first one is the ongoing fight in Texas about the whole gerrymandering thing and California's counter response through Proposition 50, which we know passed with some strong support here in the recent elections. Gerrymandering, simply put, is manipulating district boundaries to give one group a political advantage. Okay? It's been a fixture of American politics since 1812 when Massachusetts Governor Elbridge Gerry, thus gerrymandering, when Massachusetts Governor Elbridge Gerry approved a district that was kind of shaped like a salamander. And that was back in 1812. Although redistricting began as a tool for fair representation, it has often devolved into a strategy of exclusion, one designed to protect power rather than to serve justice. The second story struck a more personal chord for me that I alluded to last week. It was the growing sentiment among some Republicans and evangelical Christians regarding food stamps and public assistance. According to the USDA, 13.5% of U.S. households, that's about 18 million people, experienced food insecurity in 2023. That is up from 12.8% in 2022, which was about 17 million people. Now think about it. In the wealthiest nation on earth, 18 million households don't know where their next meal is coming from. That's roughly the population of the state of New York. In January 2024, homelessness climbed 18%, reaching 771,480 people. Add to that a Harvard study reporting that 21% of U.S. adults feel lonely and disconnected from family and friends and community. We're a developed nation, yet the hunger for food, shelter, and belonging keeps deepening. If it's this severe here, imagine what it must look like elsewhere. At first glance, political gerrymandering and rising social isolation may seem unrelated, but they share a root: the redrawing of boundaries of self-interest. There's another gerrymander, far more subtle and more spiritual. We have gerrymandered our hearts. We've drawn invisible lines around our lives so people we encounter look like us, think like us, and live like us. And we exclude those we would rather avoid. So often, Christian community has lived at the intersection of geography, philosophy, and economy. That is, people near us who share our beliefs and comfort level and general lifestyle. Yet this community often functions as a social fortress. Many of us in the middle class have mastered the art of normalizing, rationalizing avoidance. Okay? We produce convincing explanations for why crossing specific lines is just darn right impractical, even when it contradicts the very gospel we profess. We congratulate ourselves for being good neighbors when our neighborhoods are really carefully self-selected. Jesus' parable of the Good Samaritan kind of explodes our comfort zones that we have carefully designed for ourselves. Because in that story, neighbor isn't about proximity or preference. Our neighbor is determined by need. The priest and the Levite in this story saw the wounded man on the road, but they passed by. They could justify their inaction, touching a body that they thought was a corpse, or touching an open wound. Well, it just make them unclean, inconvenient. But Jesus doesn't let them off the hook, nor does Jesus let us off the hook. Okay, Jesus reframes neighborliness as engagement, regardless of the inconvenience or even the fear factor. What if the very people we avoid are the ones that God has placed in our path? Jeremiah and Ezekiel, prophets, the Hebrew scriptures, warned of this spiritual blindness, essentially both saying, "O foolish and senseless people, who have eyes to see but do not see, ears to hear but do not hear." We've chosen a new form of deafness, born of comfort rather than ignorance. The ability to gerrymander our neighborhoods, both physically and emotionally, is a privilege that Jesus never offered to his followers. When Jesus was asked in Matthew 22 what the greatest commandment in the law was, he responded very simply, right? The one I'm sure the vast majority of you have heard. Jesus said, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind." This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law, Jesus says, and the prophets hang on these two commandments. This came as a single package, all right? Jesus did not gerrymander the greatest commandment. And he has not given us the luxury to do so ourselves. Jesus calls us beyond the safe lines we have designed into a world, we're to go beyond those safe lines into a world that is crying and hurting and waiting for us to show up. He is setting the example for us. The Apostle Paul wrote to the church in Philippi in chapter 2 in the letter to the Philippians. Paul reminds us, Jesus, who being in the very nature of God, did not consider equality with God as something to be used to his own advantage. Instead, Jesus made himself nothing, taking the form of a servant, becoming human, and humbling himself through obedience to death on a cross. Now, is that easy? Absolutely not. But the promise remains. As the writer of Ephesians said in chapter 2, verse 14, "For Jesus himself is our peace," okay, who has made two groups one, and has destroyed the barrier, the dividing wall of hostility. This is the gospel, folks. Reconciliation, boundary breaking, the dismantling of walls. This week, I have some homework for you. Notice one person, just one person you usually overlook. Perhaps it's the homeless veteran at the intersection. Maybe it's the exhausted single mom at the checkout line. Maybe it's the elderly neighbor whose blinds are always closed. See them. Truly see them. As Jesus does. because the gospel was never meant to be gerrymandered, distorted, or manipulated. Amen. God bless you. Take care. Be good to yourself and each other. Be a neighbor. Love you.